Well, good morning, folks. Good morning. What am I saying? Yeah, if you're in Japan, maybe. Good evening, folks. Let's try that again. Yes, absolutely. Happy Easter. Hope everybody had a great Easter, or maybe you're continuing to have an Easter and you're having an Easter dinner tonight. If we're taking you away from that, you're either welcome or I'm my sincerest apologies. Just kidding. As I said, hopefully everybody had a great long weekend. Well deserved for Steve and Walt, who have been ever so busy getting to all of our edits. Lloyd, pleasure having you with us as well. Tony, nice to see you, my friend. Jim's in the house. Evening, Jim. Shane's here. How you doing, Shane? Um, I know what you're going to ask, and the answer is yes. That's all I'm going to say. Steve, how you doing, buddy? Nice to see you. Adrian, always a pleasure to have you with us as well. I truly appreciate all of you joining us tonight because, as Bob has just indicated, it's the playoffs, and for whatever team it is that you follow, I'm going to apologize now for any conflicts that we have. I know you can go back and watch it later, but this is probably the most difficult time next to actually when the open water season starts. When the open water season starts and everybody's out enjoying their time on the water, that's usually when we see the fewest of you. But the playoffs is a very close second. So yeah, go Habs, go! It's just nice to see so many Canadian teams in, right? Like, I mean, you say so many. There's only so many to go around, but it's nice to see the Canadian content in there. And even though the ladies lost on the weekend, it was a valiant effort. You still made us proud, even though you lost. You made us proud, ladies. So congratulations for winning the silver medal. I know they wanted the gold, but it is what it is. Ed, how you doing, my friend? Nice to see you. Joe Vitani's in the house. Yes, hopefully everybody had a great Easter. There's so much good stuff here. Titan Trolling Products, nice to have you along with us. Dean's in the house. Go Leafs, go. Sorry, that's that's awesome. Pete LeDuc's with us. How you doing, Pete? Bunny, bring you a new. Yes, I sure hope they brought you some, Pete. And it looked like you've been busy out getting the line wet just recently. So hopefully that went well. Brad's in the house. Nice to have you, Brad. Lots to discuss in regards to our topic tonight. Didn't really want to bring it to light because there's a lot of folks that are discussing it right now, and I kind of wanted to just discuss it with our community. There are lots of questions. A lot of folks have been asking questions in regards to the horrific accident that happened down on Smith Lake, and I think there was a lot of folks that asked my thoughts in terms of where is this going to take us? What's this going to look like after it's all done? And I think it's a little early to be discussing it, but unfortunately, the legal realm have already stepped up to the plate, and there's already alleged lawsuits that are being filed as we speak. I'm like, there's a time and there's a place, and I don't think we need to jump on that right away. But what do I know? What do I know? But yes, there is lots to talk about it. So Jay and I are going to spend his segment discussing it and perhaps what the playing field is going to look like going forward, how this might change, how tournaments are run, how boats are sold, how they're put together. Yeah, there's so many questions, so many what ifs that could potentially come out of this. But as Jay and I were talking just before we went live, I doubt nothing's going to happen. I'd be very surprised if there aren't implications that come of this from the tournament world, the boating world, and maybe just ethical boating, the legalities around it. I don't know. I think we have been teetering on the brink of something like this happening, and unfortunately, we didn't dodge the bullet this time. And I think change is required. Maybe you disagree, but this will be one of those topics tonight when Jay and I are discussing it that I honestly would love to have you folks chime in. If you own a boat, if you run a tournament, if you've seen situations that have arose, this isn't a finger pointing session. It's just bringing to light our various concerns for what is ultimately public safety. and making sure that these events run safely, so that we don't have to come on here and talk about losing anglers. At the end of the day, we're one big community. It doesn't matter what side of the pond or line in the sand we're on. We're all anglers, and make no mistake about it, we're all going to wear this one way or another. We're all going to wear what comes out of this. And but in the meantime, I think it's more important that we send our prayers and thoughts to the families and friends that are still mourning the loss of these 3 individuals. And there's countless other accidents that happen too, so we'll get all to that. But in the meantime, I just wanted to also go through what we always do here on Monday, which of course is our sponsors and some of the highlights and events that are happening. If anybody hasn't, maybe you just joined us, maybe you don't know, CFN has been around for 10 blessed and wonderful years. In fact, I'm honored to say that we've been around for 10 years. And there is a huge team, lots of moving parts at play that has got us to where we are, 2 of which are going to be joining us tonight in Lawrence and Jay. And I just want everybody to think of Big Jim, who unfortunately has got a lot going on in his house. All is well. Don't want anybody to be concerned, but he has been dealt a pretty crappy hand just recently. So, and as I said, it's nothing health wise. It's just house stuff. If you own a home, you know it all too well. But anyway, I'll leave that as it's Jim's story to tell. But needless to say, he won't be joining us tonight, and will be sorely missed. With it being our 10th anniversary, of course, Richard Dunlop is doing a fantastic, spectacular, Herculean type effort to get you folks in our CFN swag. We have this, of course, that was initiated before the end of the year. And then just recently, because it is our 10th anniversary, Walter with Dan Coates put together this commemorative CFN jersey that is going to be sold all year long. And we would love to see you folks wear something that is going to be truly unique, and come December 31st is no longer going to be available. So to say this is a collector's item is an understatement, but that's exactly what this basically is. And we want to thank all the wonderful folks that have helped us get here, because without you, it just wouldn't have happened. It really wouldn't. It would not be a typical Monday without talking about our CFN retreat at Horwood Lake Lodge, August 10th to the 16th. Looking forward to well, we're seeing a whole bunch of folks there. But I think what's really cool is we have 1 cabin left. If I recall Warren correctly from last week, we have 1 cabin left that sleeps 4. That's it. The camp is booked. So if you want to be one of those 4, maybe you have a group of 4 that you want to fish together. You haven't fished in a while, and you're thinking of, setting something up so that you and a friend, or maybe some high school buddies, whatever, get a hold of Warren, get a hold of Doris. There's 1 cabin available. It sleeps 4, and it can be yours for the low price of $9.99 per angler. And of course, it includes your meals, a boat rental, shared accommodations, fuel, bait, and a nightly fish fry. Love to see you there. Looking forward to it. It is the highlight of our summer. The other highlight, of course, is the OFC Nation retreat at the wonderful Camp McIntosh. That's what it costs per angler, September 24th to the 28th. That's when it's going to be running. And of course, being a Monday, let's take a McIntosh minute, shall we?
Thank you, Shimano. Here at Camp McIntosh, catching beautiful bass.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Camp McIntosh for the wonderful time I'm having here and the beautiful fishing. Thank you.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you, Shimano, for my symmetry rod. I just pulled in this beautiful pike with it on the French River. Woo!
Yeah, Matt, this is what we catch here to get the nice pike.
All inside of you.
Kevin, thank you, Shimano. Thank you, Camp McIntosh, for a new personal best 42-inch northern pike.
You making you got it all inside.
And of course, if you are looking to join us, that is all the information you need. If you are a little bit tech savvy, of course, we have a QR code, which doesn't seem to be with me. Right. Oh, there it is. Yes. We have a QR code. Just scan over top of the QR code in your photo app and click on the link, and that'll take you right to Camp McIntosh and all the wonderful information that you need to know to either join us or perhaps book a trip of your own. Needless to say, there is room at Camp McIntosh, and they are awaiting your call. So do not delay. We have the one and only Lawrence Gunther coming up right after a word from our sponsor. I got to find it for there we go.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And as I always usually say, this is Lawrence Gunther. How are we doing tonight, Lawrence?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you?
Good, man. How was your Easter?
It was nice. We spent a couple days up at the Exploration Center, just meeting with contractors and volunteers, just ramping up the last few construction projects we got to do on the property to get things ready, to get things open. And I don't even want to talk about the list of things to do, but it's we've got a few big ones ahead of us, and then we'll be flying, man. I'm looking forward to it. So it was so nice to be up there. There was puddles on the ground. The lake is still frozen solid. There's a tiny little sliver of open water along the shore, maybe a foot wide, but the rest of it's 2 feet of ice. So it's been a late spring, eh?
It has, and it has certainly dragged on. They're getting pounded with snow up north as we speak.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how many centimeters they got just north of like the Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury area. Our folks up in Timmins are still struggling with snow.
Wow.
And I know folks don't like talking about it, but I'd like to say this might be, I know we keep saying it, this might be the end of it. But it certainly is to the south. Like we're not going to see any more of that. Maybe some cold nights here and there, but I think our weather is going to stay on the incline when it comes to temperature. So looking forward to that, as I am sure everyone is. But that's awesome. That's a great way to spend an Easter. Well done.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then a beautiful walk yesterday with the dogs. They were exhausted, so we took them for another walk. But after a long winter of me cruising around with them, taking it easy, slow, not to flip over on the black ice. Now it's full blast again, and I got to work some weight. My guide dog gained 10 pounds over the winter.
Oh wow!
That's
Scottie.
No. No, I tell you, he's getting older too. Like he's going to turn 8 years old this year, so he's just past his prime, maybe, but he's still a great dog, and he's super healthy. He just had a relaxing long winter, and we don't bring him up there in the winter because he can't chase snowmobiles. It's not fair, and I can't put him on the snowmobile, so he has to stay home in the winter. But now that the things are cleared up and we can access the property with the truck, he's back up and just loving it up there. They just love it up there, and the two dogs. So, but I tell you, the ice on the lake though, Muskrat Lake is still frozen. Yeah. And that could come off. That's just near Cobden, Ontario, just a bit north, about an hour's drive north of Ottawa. And so that might just thaw just in time for trout opener. The St. Lawrence River is about 44 degrees, 42 degrees. Wow. So the walleye there haven't even come out of the depths yet. They're still in the deep water. They haven't even come into the shallows to spawn yet.
Really? They haven't made it into the shallows yet?
No. And that season's going to open up on May 3rd, right? That's coming fast.
If we could, I don't know if we do this because I don't want to upset people, but if we could submit or just insert a public service announcement. If you pull a walleye out and it's spitting eggs, can you do us a huge favor and throw it back real
Mhm.
quick?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're all big, beautiful fish. Some people bring them home. Some people catch their limit and go home. Some people just let them all go. Some people take a few for a meal. You have all types, right? But for sure, you shouldn't be overeating on those. They're still carrying a fair bit of mercury in them. On the American side, the New York side of that river, they say don't eat any of them. No one should eat any of them. On the Canadian side, it's a little more lenient, unless you're a nursing mother or a pregnant woman, and then so there's some contradictory advice happening about the walleye in the St. Lawrence, but they sure are abundant and they're big, and there's lots of them. So it's hard not to go down there and take part in that fishery. It's a spectacular fishery.
Agreed. And I'm so glad to hear that fishery, when it comes to the walleye, has completely rebounded. I'm hearing nothing but great things. I get a varying degree of basically the status of muskie in that area. There are some concerns, and some other people say that there's nothing to be concerned about. So it's hit or miss with that. But all in all, it seems as if that fishery is doing well on the whole. But I don't know. You would know better than I would.
It is. The walleye have tuned into the. It took them a little while. Maybe they're not the smartest fish on the in the water.
Easy.
The smallmouth discovered the gobies years ago, right?
Okay.
The walleye were late to, they got the dinner bell, but they were late to the table. But they figured it out now.
I can't speak for walleye because I don't resemble that of a walleye. I don't look very picky on what I eat, but perhaps maybe my cousin the walleye is. Maybe we are a little bit pickier on what we eat.
Yeah. So
I would like to say this, that we are actually smarter than the smallmouth, because basically we don't know what that is, right? So we said, canary in the coal mine. Hey, Mr. Smallmouth, who puts everything in its mouth, come on over here, grab a few of these, and you know what? We'll check back with you a couple years later and see if you're all right. If you're good, then we'll start eating them. That is my analogy.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
I agree. And I just did an interview with a scientist from the St. Lawrence River Institute for Environmental Science on the predator-prey relationship between the big predatory fish in the St. Lawrence River and gobies, and how that's evolving and how that's continuing to evolve. Right, it keeps changing all the time.
Yeah.
It's a moving target for sure, but she's dedicating her life to studying this interchange between these this invasive and the native fish species there. So stay tuned for that podcast to come out soon. And it was a fascinating discussion, and there's still a lot more to learn. Absolutely a lot more to learn on what the goby means. Like we know, like you mentioned, muskie, and we know from the research done there that the muskie around Kingston that are gorging on those big 12-inch gobies that are living in the St. Lawrence River, they go to 12 to 15 inches, the gobies, and the muskie are chewing down those guys. Those gobies have a lot of virus in them. Gobies apparently don't spend a lot of time fighting virus. They just spend a lot of time reproducing. They put all their eggs.
Yeah, just creating virus, spreading.
Just reproducing, and who cares if they die? But it's that virus that killed a lot of those muskie in 2006. Yeah. We had it again about 2-3 years ago, a big fish kill after that winter, 2 winters ago, remember? And so we lost a lot of big muskie again on the St. Lawrence River. So and they're equating it to they're eating these disease-ridden giant gobies as they where they're picking up the virus from. So
one thing that I would love to know the answer to, and I'm sure Jay probably has it on the tip of his tongue. It seems like every question I ask him, he has an answer. But what is different about the metabolism or the digestive system of a muskie as opposed to, say, a smallmouth or walleye?
Yeah,
that makes them more susceptible to carrying these diseases, taking on these diseases. Yeah, and they have far more of an effect on the muskie. Now, Some would argue, well, a muskie's going to eat a lot more gobies, so you just all you're doing is expediting the amount of disease, if you will, or whatever it is you want to call it. But at the end of the day, the metabolism is definitely different between the two, and it'd be interesting to know what makes it different and why certain fish can digest them without having any ill effects.
Yeah, is it the fact that they're older and they bioaccumulate more? But it's virus, right? I mean, they don't bioaccumulate virus.
No, it's
You
true.
know, you either have the virus or you don't. You either fight it off or you don't. So that, I don't know. I think that's a question that still needs to be answered. We still need to put more emphasis on researching that. And there's people working hard at it to figure that one out.
100%.
Yeah.
One thing that's very encouraging that we talked about just before we went live that we announced here on CFN Live that they were imposing restrictions on the mackerel catch out east.
Yeah.
You have some very cool something very cool to share with us tonight in regards to that fishery out on the East Coast, and I'll let you take it from there.
Well, a little bit of history. So the Atlantic mackerel, not to be confused with the king mackerel that you catch down in Florida and the Gulf of Mexico that can get up to 20, 30 pounds. These fish get to be 18 inches in length, right? But they have no swim bladder. And so they carry no baggage when it comes to speed. These things are built for speed, these 18-inch fish. And they've been plentiful. And the source of all, predatory fish's food base for millennia. When I was just doing some research and after we showed up in North America, we tuned into these mackerel so profitably that we actually they had to pass a law in 1670. In 1670, they had to pass a law limiting the type of gear used to catch mackerel and creating a season when you were allowed to catch mackerel.
1670?
1670, they had to pass that law. So the population of mackerel has been bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down. In 2021, they were put back on the list of unsustainable. So they stopped the fishing both off the coast of the United States and Canada. And that was a big problem. Like for people who fish lobster and crab, they use mackerel to put, fresh mackerel to put into the traps to catch the lobster and the crab. So they had to get a special dispensation and some assistance to figure out what else they could use in their traps. Same with the tuna fishery. They were using mackerel to catch tuna. So, there's some big, important fisheries that were relying on these fish as bait. So they got special licenses, but to catch mackerel just for other purposes, they put a stop to that. And recreationally, commercially, on all fronts, they put a stop on mackerel fishing. Well, good news is it paid off. Like this was in 2021. In 2024, these fish were taken off, were pronounced they had reached sustainable population again. So they're back on the market, my friend. They've recovered.
Period of time.
Yeah.
Like you talk about the will of Mother Nature. My Lord, man, there is no stronger will out there than hers. That is phenomenal. But again, it goes to show, right? If we listen to the science, good things can come of it. That's fantastic news.
It's really good news because this is such an important, iconic fish for so many people. It's the tourism fish. When you go out to Eastern Canada, you get on a lobster boat, in the midsummer, and you go out for 2 or 3 hours of puking and fishing, which is the case for most tourists. You're chumming, and you're catching mackerel.
Yeah, you're doing something. As long as it's over the side of the boat, it's chumming.
And you're catching these fish, and you bring some home, and they're delicious. They're very oily. You smoke them, you cook them. They're very nice. Yeah, I love eating mackerel.
I love eating them. Yeah. I don't like the smell when you cook them.
No,
I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of the smell when you cook mackerel. But man, are they ever delicious when
they are. Yeah, they are. They have a real nice flavor to them, a nice smoky flavor, and just a delicious fish. And so yeah, they're back in play. They're back in play. Good for the tourism, good for the people, good for Indigenous people. Just people who survive on these fish. Who makes up a big part of their diet for a lot of people out there. And you have some food insecurity when food prices are going up and up and up, and you need them for bait and so on. Yeah, that's good news, man. It's good news that I didn't think that they could bounce back so quickly. I thought this is a 20-year venture. Like you look on the West Coast with the
Salmon.
the sardine, right?
Sardines,
Yeah. And they're struggling, and so there, yeah, and Manhattan as well on the East Coast. So yeah, we have to, it's so easy to get into this thinking that there's many of these fish, and there's an endless supply, and you can scoop them up and turn them into oil, use the oil to make paint or whatever people are doing with these things, fish pellets for the aquaculture industry. There's a lot of ways to use these small fish, but we should be eating them, not, turn them into paint.
No, I have to agree there. We have an entire world to feed, a huge nation internationally. There's a lot of people that unfortunately require a lot of food, and a good portion of it's going to be coming out of the sea. So I'm glad to hear that things are increasing as opposed to decreasing. But with that news, I know there's a bit of a but in there. So
I'm always good for a but.
I will let you share the but.
Yeah. Okay, little history. Magnuson-Stevens Act passed in 1976 in the United States. This gave scientists the ability to identify fish stocks that are being fished unsustainably, to remove them from fishing pressure, to rebuild the numbers, to observe and measure and monitor, and then to determine when those fish stocks can be fished once again. And since the Magnuson-Stevens Act came into force in 1976, over 50 commercial fish stocks have been put back onto the fishery list. Everything from haddock to scallops. It's incredible how they've rebuilt commercial fishery stocks all around the United States through this act that the Americans have done. Yeah. And now after 50 years, not quite 50 years, there's pressure to say, science should not dictate how we fish, that fishing should be allowed to take place. And a lot of these rules, a lot of these regulations are being curtailed now. And with the interest of giving more room for commercial fishing to take place, and to make what some people want to see is the United States as the most profitable, lucrative commercial fishery in the world. So that's where they're heading. That's their plan.
Sounds like an aggressive approach. And after sharing, this miraculous turnaround with the mackerel, we might be going down a different road if we decide to do this. Or am I wrong?
Well, this is the case. I think this is going to be the case, and this is also going to be the case. Probably at some point we'll see this as well in the Great Lakes as well. I would imagine. What would stop the United States from limiting this to marine fisheries? Why wouldn't they apply this to their commercial fishing fleet on the Great Lakes as well? So we could see that happening, and so, a lot of hard work to rebuild fish stocks on the Great Lakes could be undone, and that would be very disappointing.
Well, does it almost seems as if we've taken a pause. There's a pause. I mean, obviously, without mentioning names, we have a pause going on in our country right now because we have an election that's about to take place. We certainly have a pause with everything that's going on between our country and the one to our south. Right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you're in agreement or not, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, everything has just been paused for the simple fact that people are sitting, waiting to see what this all means. What is this all going to turn into? And I think, given everything that's going on in our world already, do we really need this confusion? Like, we talk about mental health, Lawrence. We talk about what is sustaining the mental health of individuals on either side of the border right now with the confusion that is currently going on.
I've heard some interviews, and there seems to be a lot of faith. A lot of people are turning to faith, saying, they believe that the better times are coming, that the golden era is coming, and that they might not understand all the various intricacies on what needs to be done to get there, but they're on the path to going there. And so yeah, there's a lot of people who believe that they're on the right path. And
Sure hope
you
so.
know, when we're looking from outside in, you know, maybe we have a little bit different perspective, right? You know, we're not caught up necessarily in all the talk and spin, and we're thinking, well, hang on, you know, look, just weeks ago, they announced that the lake trout population in Lake Champlain, after years of restocking, has reached a natural, sustainable level. That this will be the last year that they plan to introduce a lake trout into the Lake Champlain. That the population is now fully sustainable on its own. And you know, we've seen that similar announcements come out of Lake Superior, Lake Huron last year. You know, Michigan, the lake trout population there has rebounded over the last 10 years. So, you know, it shows that careful stocking, management practices can rebuild fish stocks to sustainable levels again. It's all done with science and the cooperation of anglers and commercial fishers and indigenous fishers working together, you know, taking responsibility for implementing the conservation measures, and it's been paying off. It's been paying off. But, you know, is this just talk? Is it just, you know, threats? Is it a negotiating position? What is it exactly that we're hearing about, or is it just ideology? You know,
Well, this is just it. Because at the end of the day, first of all, is it the Canadian side or the American side that's decided not to keep introducing lake trout into Lake Champlain?
the American side. Yeah.
So this is actually big news.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, our American cousins, friends, colleagues, whatever you want to call them, they primarily have, when it comes to the freshwater side of things, they primarily have a put and take fishery. I don't want to, you know, throw that under the entire umbrella that all of their fishing and accessibility to freshwater fishing is put and take, because it's not. But a good majority it is. And I have not heard in recent, like, I mean, when was the last time you heard the Americans stop stocking a put and take fish?
Yeah.
Never happens.
No. That they think more is more, right? More is more. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it's not, you know, like we hear these decisions, and we also, you know, I was just on a meeting last week, and with the newly founded, and if people are interested in learning more, send me an email. It's the St. Lawrence Fish Health Subcommittee, as part of the St. Lawrence River Institute for Environmental Science. And we're just launching this. And so we've been exchanging information. And, you know, some people thought some of the money, engineering money to prevent Asian carp from entering Lake Michigan from the through Chicago, that money was suspended, they're canceled, and that project to prevent, you know, the Asian carp from coming into the lake was being terminated. That was reversed. The you know, Governor Gretschner went down to Washington, met with the president, and explained why this was important, and the funds were restored, and the projects will go ahead. You know, we heard also that employees, U.S. employees responsible for introducing the lampricide into the Great Lakes. I think I reported on this on a previous episode of, you know, our show here, that the lampricide was not going to be put in place in time. And we now know that the funding has been restored, that the people that were fired have been rehired. Wow. And not everyone came back. So they're having to retrain a bunch of people to put in the lampricide into the rivers, because now's the time to get it into the rivers. It's now. Yep. And to stop the, you know, these small larvae, sea lamprey from growing and getting into the Great Lakes. So it's that project is back on track. So, you know, yeah, I think the decisions are being made, and then cooler heads and more discussion, and you know, people are not necessarily against changing their minds or reversing decisions when they see that it's in the best interest, right? So fingers crossed that it's not all doom. That there'll be some U-turns on some of these decisions, and we're already seeing evidence of that.
Well, this is and that's fantastic news. It really is. But I love our community because they think outside the box. And to our discussion about the lake trout on Lake Champlain, Charles writes, are they relying us to do the stocking?
Can you imagine? We have a tiny little Canadian footprint on the shore of that lake, eh? Like almost minuscule. One small community. The rest of it is all the.
You're so right. And again, like, I mean, this is not to embarrass or
no,
create shame in any way. But at the end of the day, when it comes to stocking, just go down and look at some of the hatcheries that they have on the state side.
Yeah.
They pale in comparison to what goes on here in Canada. Or sorry, what goes on here in Canada pales in comparison to what goes on down the States.
Yeah.
You go to the Finger Lakes down in New York, and it's not a big that's not a big jaunt for folks who live in Ontario. If you're interested, you can book a tour, and trust me, you will be blown away as I was. The sheer magnitude of size and the number of fish. We stock what 2 to 8 million walleye up here, where one hatchery stocks 200 million. Like the numbers are staggering.
Wow.
So to answer your question, Charles, if they are, they're going to be sadly disappointed. And then Steve writes, is the stocking funds dried up? Are the stocking funds dried up? And I'd have to say, based on what you're telling me, that's not the case. It's just reproduction.
Yeah.
Natural reproduction has now taken over. And
it was a scientific report. Yeah.
And the thing I love about stocking, and this is what's most important, because I think this is where a lot of misconceptions arise. Every time stocking is mentioned, when you use the term, it is understood that there is a beginning and there's an end. Stocking is not something that's supposed to continue, because unless I got it wrong, and all the books that I read over the years told me, incorrectly what the true course of a stocking program is. The stocking program is to have a start, and it's to have an end, and in hopes that natural reproduction will eventually take over. So this put and take fishery, it's something obviously that we don't do necessarily up here in Canada, although there are some examples of where it does go on. But for the most part, we almost 100% rely on natural reproduction to provide our fisheries. Now, we do have hatcheries that do some wonderful work creating a variety of species that we have the pleasure of targeting. But for the most part, natural recruitment is the way to go up here. But great comments, guys. One can only hope that that's true, George. I completely agree. Lots interesting stuff there. What have you got upcoming? Have you got any interesting and fascinating and famous people that you're going to be speaking to anytime soon?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we've got some interviews coming up on Wednesday. We're doing 2 interviews. One with the BC Federation of Anglers. We're talking about, can you have a selective salmon fishery based on cutting the little otopus fin on the stocked salmon, and then just harvesting those stocked salmon by identifying them through that missing little fin and releasing the wild fish. And there's science now that's proving that this is effective. This is an effective means of keeping a recreational fishery alive and allowing the wild salmon stocks to rebuild. And so we're having some experts from the fishery who've been following this quite closely with the scientists, and we'll be talking to them. And so we've got
believe in citizen science.
Yeah,
this has potential, because we've seen it on the West Coast, right? Like, I mean, wild fish, is it not required to release wild fish on the West Coast?
It's not a law, but there are some rules. Like what they did is they said you can keep one or keep 2, right? But now they're saying, hey, look, why don't we have a bigger limit of the stocked fish and have a no retention limit for the wild fish. That's what the recreational fishery has been promoting, and it's just a matter of clipping those fins of the stocked fish before they're released. If you don't clip the fin, how can you tell? So there's been a movement afoot to make that happen. The government bought the equipment to make that happen. Those fish have been clipped, and now we're seeing the results that this is a workable solution.
Interesting. I've got George Morgan who's chimed in here and is correcting me. The comment that I made about stocking, there's a beginning and there's an end, and most stocking is for put and take. There are very few stocking programs that are used to establish naturally reproducing populations. Basically, the Great Lakes lake trout programs are the only ones. Isn't that interesting?
You know, it's something in Canada. The OMAH, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and all that, they decided, I think about 10 years ago, that they would start to move towards rebuilding self-sustaining fish stocks, and then ending the stocking program. And because there's just too many lakes, we just have too many lakes to have so many put and take fisheries, right? Like if you see every lake where they put fish in as a put and take fishery, so then you can have big limits, you can have fishing pressure where you can say, look, it's a put and take fishery, go in there and fill your limit every time you show up, because they're going to be replenished in the fall or the spring or whatever, and that's the attitude. Yeah, that's fine. But we have way too many lakes and not enough money to do this with all these different lakes. So the ministry decided 10 years ago, they're going to try to make these, and especially walleye in the southern lakes, right? In southern Ontario, where there's so much pressure. They're saying, look, we're not going to keep stocking all these lakes with walleye. If the walleye, we're going to do it for a few more years. And if the walleye population falls away, then it falls away. It's just too expensive to take care of so many lakes. It's not like Six Finger Lakes, right, in New York State. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of lakes. So yeah.
No, it's very true. Wow. Yeah. Well, we will, as always, have to wait and see what this all will mean in the very end, what kind of picture it gets painted. But needless to say, it's nice to know that you're on it and you're keeping up with everything that you're doing. And I don't know where you find the time. We look forward to hearing from the folks out on the West Coast. That should be interesting to see their take on what's going on with the fishery, because we really haven't had anybody on here from out west to really talk about.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
So it'd be interesting to see, like the mackerel, are the salmon coming back?
Yeah. Well, not off the coast of California, apparently, or the coast of Oregon. That salmon fishery is probably going to be closed for the third year in a row for recreational fishing. So that's not a good sign, but again, they're in a rebuilding process, right? So maybe this is a good sign. Maybe it's not the end of the fishery. Maybe this is the end of the beginning of something new, with these closures that they're rebuilding. And that could be, and I'll tell you one other thing just quickly. A friend of mine, she founded Water Rangers 10 years ago, Kat Kavanaugh. It's all about community science, water testing, water quality testing. The World Wildlife Federation, releases these reports on the state of watersheds and biodiversity around the world. They asked Water Rangers if they would do the state of the watersheds in Canada report. And that just came out last week.
Interesting.
And because of my influence with Kat and getting to know Kat over the last 10 years, I said, you know what? I said, fish health, fish population, fish health is an indicator of water quality. We should be using that as a measurement. So it's in the report. It's in the report as one of the 5 measuring sticks used to determine water quality in Canada now in this WWF report developed by Water Rangers, a Canadian nonprofit. So we'll be talking to a couple of their leading individuals from Water Rangers as well about the status of the report, what they found about fish health in all these different watersheds across Canada, how they're measuring that and the results achieved. And it should be interesting. So stay tuned for that.
Look forward to it as always, Lawrence. And we can't thank you enough for your time and your efforts towards our lives every Monday. And of course, what you bring to our community, it means the world to us, buddy. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Ben. And thanks for the opportunity.
It is an opportunity that you earn weekly, dude. Weekly, my friend. But yeah, nonetheless, as I said, it's an honor to have you here, and I think you're doing wonderful things. So hopefully, you're able to carry on that tradition for a very long period of time.
That's the plan. You know, every day, just take it one day at a time.
Attaboy. We got Jay Barnucz coming up right after a word from his sponsor. But in the meantime, have yourself a great week, Lawrence.
You too, buddy.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have. Thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural. Man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
So Jay's there. Just before we do go to Jay, I just wanted to make an announcement that on Wednesday we're going to be doing the Camp McIntosh draw. We were going to do it tonight, but just because things were rushed and we didn't get all the names, we are going to be doing it on Wednesday. So for all those who signed up, put in an application, became an applicant, you will find out on Wednesday at 8 o'clock who is going to win the All-American plan. We got to come up with something different, eh? I don't know about you folks, but the All-American plan is getting kind of old. Maybe we should come up with something new, but it's a 2-night stay for you and a partner, a buddy, a friend up at Camp McIntosh. It is a great place to spend some time and a great place to go fishing. So I'm looking forward to all of you tuning in on Wednesday to find out who our winner is. And now it's time to bring in the one and only Jay Barnucz. How you doing, Jay?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
Living the dream. So I wanted to play a video, and I know a lot of folks have probably done their part and read up on this. I came across a video that I thought was really interesting in the sense that it was a video that was done sort of as everything was happening without really knowing it was happening. So it's an interesting perspective without being disrespectful to those families that have lost friends, loved ones. It's horrifying, but I thought I'd play this just so you guys get a bit of a unique perspective to the accent.
Not sure what was going on back there, guys, but right in the middle of the lake, they were doing a search. I'm afraid somebody maybe is drowned or is missing, so a little prayer for them. Cops were out there telling me I had to idle through just a wide open lake park, so prayers for them. What? That several boats.
Flint Davis of Leesburg, Georgia.
Yes. What about Flint?
It is Longfield. It doesn't say.
Oh no. Flint's just a kid, man.
It indicates it was him.
Oh my God, dude, I'm about to puke. I'm about to puke. Guys, you will have already heard about this by the time I put this video out, but local here on a dock, I was telling him there was a bad wreck. I didn't know nothing about it. And he pulled up the news on his phone, and it says at least one life was lost. Doesn't say who. It does say Flint Davis was involved in the wreck. And I just waved and talked to him this morning. It doesn't matter who it is, it sucks, but just thinking about that possibility just makes me sick. It makes me thankful for what I got. And I'm sitting out here fishing, enjoying this beautiful day, because at least one person is not going to get to do that ever again. And it's one of our guys, you know, and it hurts. I'm sick. And there's multiple boats involved this morning. 7 o'clock this morning, early, probably at takeoff. Probably something happened. Somebody probably lost control, and I'm just speculating, but oh man, guys, you know what? I don't even care. I got 8 pounds, and I don't even care if it just doesn't matter right now. I'm just hurting. My heart's just hurting. Just knowing there's a family right now that is just broke into pieces. I just pray, because they were still looking, man. They were looking when we went by them.
It's hard to watch because you sort of put yourself in his position. I can't imagine having a friend that I knew, that I spoke to that morning, involved in an accident like that, and then having that somehow be digested while you're out on the water. I can't imagine what that poor angler felt by the end of the day. But you can see, Jay, it probably is the same feeling that a lot of us would have. It's kind of like again, I hate to overuse the term, but a bit of a pause. Like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wow, we can die doing this. People can get seriously hurt doing this. Yeah, it puts everything in perspective. It really does. Again, I don't know if we want to dive into the details per se, Jay, unless you have a lot of details to share. But
yeah, so there's a lot of speculation about what's happened, and anyone who wants to look it up, you can look up Major League Fishing, so MLF, and there was an accident over the weekend at one of their tournaments on Smith Lake. It'll be referred to as Smith Mountain Lake sometimes. It's in Alabama, and early reports are one of the competitors collided with a boat with 5 other individuals on board. That was a guide vessel, from what I can figure out. And the guide, I believe the guide was killed upon impact. Sounds like the other 5 anglers may have ended. Other 4 anglers may have ended up in the water. 2 of them drowned after the incident. And the operator of the bass boat, Flint, he was hospitalized with injuries. So it's gone to legal now. There's lawyers investigating. MLF hasn't released a statement yet. And, I think that what's important here is this is the type of stuff, if anyone hasn't been involved in, and it doesn't, not even bass tournaments, man. Like we've had issues. I say we, the collective we, even within CFN, right? Like some of the fish off events over the years, we've had bad weather, bad events. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what to do, Scottie, and you're left in a position as organizers. What do we do in these situations? And in this case, there was talks that there were fog delays that day. If anyone knows, and we don't know the conditions at the location of the incident. We know that if fog was an issue, it's possible. But the issue too is that fog is inconsistent. I can speak from personal experience. In 2007, I fished a tournament. I qualified for Team Ontario. I drove to Hartford, Connecticut on the provincial team, fished in the Eastern Regional on the Connecticut River. And we had a fog delay on day 2. And we waited for an hour and a half for the fog to lift. Now, this was a river. And we talked about rivers and how, like they're so long that the conditions can change along their length. And I can recall very vividly this particular day. This was 20 years ago. And with my partner, we're going down the Connecticut River, and in a river that's probably only 200 meters wide. And we're literally following the other boats. And then we started hitting fog banks where the fog you can't stop, because if you stop, there's someone right behind you. And there's also someone right in front of you. You're going down a Congo line of bass boats. Everyone's still doing 50, 60 miles an hour. And it's scary, Scottie. And, and you don't have much time to react in those situations. And like, we're not on a road here, we're on a waterway, and water's a different beast. It's not regulated in terms of, like, on roads, you have signs, you have lines you can follow. On water, you don't. And we see these incidents happen. And we've had incidents in Ontario the last couple of years. There was 2024, I believe, Bob's Lake near Kingston had an injury or a fatality there too. And yeah, like these reports come up, and I feel bad for everyone involved. It's honestly hard to talk about it, but I really have to say that, you know, these events that have happened this weekend, and there was another injury in the national NPFL tournament on a lake. I think it was in North Carolina. There was another accident there. So this is going to put, I don't want to say put a bad mark on the industry, but definitely there's going to be an investigation, and the lawyers involved with the incident on Smith Lake in Alabama have openly stated in their statement for the plaintiffs that they are going to investigate how fishing tournaments and the safety of fishing tournaments. So this is something that we definitely want to pay attention to, and I don't know where it's going to go, but this could be precedent setting, and I don't know what that means, but usually it takes something like this, unfortunately, to set a precedent, but I'm not sure what that will end up being. But things like this are going to make it hard potentially for tournament organizers to get insurance, for boaters to get insurance. Yeah, there's so much to, like, if you read between the lines about some of these incidents, when you hear the words drowning, right away I think of, okay, there was an incident, there was a collision, but anglers probably weren't wearing their PFDs, right? And I'm not trying to blame anyone, I'm not pointing fingers, but that's probably one of the contributing factors in many of these incidents, that PFDs aren't being worn. And it's a bit of a dominoes effect here, and potentially
it is, and it's great to have folks from the kayak community. I believe, Rick, you're from Kayak Bass Canada. You know, where it was enlightening. In fact, it was refreshing to hear that during their tournaments, during their events, you must wear a PFD at all times.
Yeah,
there's really no time during the competition that you are not required to wear a life jacket. So, you know, there's a huge step forward right there, and I must congratulate the kayak community for doing that. Will the bass community, will other species that hold tournaments soon follow? I don't know.
I think, I don't know why we haven't, Scottie. Like this really, and I know, and I don't want to get too political, but there's been talk about making PFDs mandatory in Canada. And I know there's people who say, you can't make me wear a PFD. Well, they also said that about seatbelts 40 years ago, right? Look what happened. So now we all wear seatbelts because the statistics tell us that seatbelts do save lives. Yes, there are outlying situations where a car goes in the water and you can't undo your seatbelt and you drown, or things like that. There's outliers.
Yeah.
But day to day, seatbelts save lives. And with the technology now in life jackets and PFDs, I don't think there's a reason not to wear one at all times. I really do. So they've taken steps, though. The industry's taken big steps. Like, you rarely see blast offs anymore, where literally everyone takes off at the same time. Like, they still call it blast off, but nearly 99% do what's called a trickle start.
Yeah.
Where the boats, for those that don't know, like, the boats will all gather in an area, and usually there's a lead boat with someone, usually with a megaphone or something similar, and the boats get lined up in order. I actually love how, like, the CSFL does it, and Andy gets power tripping. I know they don't like it when he gets power tripping, but I think it works, man, for safety. And let me explain what happens. This is important for people that don't fish in these events. If you're ever in one of these events, you know, boats are numbered, and they'll tell you where to put the number on your cowl, on your motor cowl. There's usually a number sticker, and most organizers will tell you to put the number on the back of the motor, on the stern, on the very back of the cowl. And that's because they want everyone getting in line. So they've drawn the numbers, what the launch order is, or the takeoff order is, and you're responsible. So you're out there in your boat and you got to look. I'm number 21, so I'm looking for number 20. I want to be behind boat 20 so that when I get to the lead boat that's shooing everyone off, I get to take off. Now, if I get out of line and I jump the line, I will get sent to the back of the line. I love that rule. Like, if we can't organize ourselves in a line, and usually these takeoff areas are like kilometers long, and it's so important for the safety of everyone involved. There's still a couple tournaments that I know of that happen where they have basically it's a shotgun start, flare in the air, everyone goes. Those have to stop. To me, that's my own opinion. There's, especially when the boats are also different. Like I've seen blast off starts where you have 25-foot fiberglass with twin outboards blasting off beside two guys in a 16-footer with a 40 on it, right? Like the wake alone can swamp the other boat. Like it just has to be done better. We can be better. So I saw a comment from George about, like, you and I talked about this, about motor size. Like in most high level tournaments now, I'm going to use quotes, to be competitive, you're talking boats that are 20 feet long or more, and 225 is the smallest motor you'll typically see. Most guys are running 250s, and these are rocket ships. Like we're not talking 50 miles an hour anymore. We're talking 70 miles an hour these boats go. And there's no governor on the boat. There's no, like, you can just go and go and go. And if anyone, like I drove a bass boat one time, a buddy's, my first time driving a bass boat. And I've driven boats for 40 years. And my first time in a bass boat was about 20 years ago. And he let me drive it. And it was, I effed up, man. I learned a new respect for that type of boat. We hit a wake and I didn't trim down or slow down enough. And we ate it, man. We ate it. My buddy had to go, like, he was an older gentleman, and he saw his chiropractor for about 3 months because of that one wake that we jumped. Like, we hit it hard. And it's because I didn't understand how that type of boat behaves. I know now, and I had to learn the hard way. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of us learn. So I admit my fault at that moment for not having respect. I've driven lots of boats since, all sizes, all speeds. I respect it. Dude, I like a kayak, man. I really do. And I'll give a shout out to the kayak community, because, and Rick mentioned it there in the chat. Like, we wear PFDs all the time. Very, very strict rules about, I'll explain how kayak tournaments typically work. We like to get there real early in the morning. And I think part of that is so we don't clog up the ramps. Like launching a kayak, when you got to rig it and set it up and stuff, it can take a little bit of time. So typically the way kayak tournaments work is, one, you all don't go to one ramp normally. There are events like that, but typically when you're talking 100+ kayaks on a lake, you can launch from any public access point, number one. So you kind of spread the launching around. Number two is each boat must have navigation lights. Now, at minimum, if you aren't running a motor, you have to have at least what's called a 360 light. Okay, so almost everyone uses a 360 light. And I use mine all the time. Like, I have mine with a flag on it. I have that flag up every day I'm out. I don't care if I'm on a pond or if I'm on Lake Erie, I'm running a flag. And with the 360 light, the light doesn't have to be on. But one thing I encourage everyone to do, and now if you read the rules specifically with a motor on a kayak, you should have a red and green light. Yeah. I think they should be on the vessel regardless of whether you have a motor or not, because it shows direction of travel, so that if someone's coming up on you, they know which way you're facing. And I know you're not traveling at a high rate of speed, but you're not worried about yourself. You're worried about others around you potentially. And so for a lot of us in the kayaks, back to the launching, we all launch. We actually wait, and we'll have a set launch time, meaning let's say sunrise is at 6 a.m. Well, that's typically when fishing starts. And so what they'll say is you can launch an hour before if you want. Now, you can launch really as long as it's after, let's say 5 a.m., you're good. You can launch whenever you want, but you cannot leave the launch area until 5. So it's kind of cool. My first kayak tournament was on Lake Dalrymple a couple years ago, like sort of my first live one where there was like a good number of boats. And dude, everyone's like sitting by the launch ramp. Everyone launches at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And we all sit there in our kayaks, and all you see is the glow of GPS units and nav lights, and you can hear voices talking. And Trevor and I just sat there side by side, and at 5 a.m. you hear everyone's alarms going off on their phone or on their GPS, and everyone just takes off. But it's funny because it's like in slow motion, right? It's like Austin Powers, like you're just going. But you look across the lake, and this happened in Long Point last year when they had the big tournament here in Long Point. I had so many buddies who fished Long Point like every weekend, Long Point Bay. And they said it was so cool because it was a very calm morning. It was actually a great day of kayak fishing. They could see all these little red and green lights and white lights, like my buddy said it was like insects, like moving across the bay. Like he could see them from a distance because there was 100 of us out there, right? So it was pretty cool. And so, and I think too, also for us, it's also self-regulating, meaning if someone's out there without proper lights, we are obligated to report to the tournament director that someone's not running with proper lights. That's important. So, and I know back to the boat side of things, you'd be surprised. You can have all these bells and whistles, dude. You can have these $100,000 boats, and a light bulb can ruin your day because your navigation lights aren't working. And so you can't launch in the dark if you don't have proper nav lights, and tournament directors will hold you back. And in some instances, they won't let you leave at all because, and the rule is because if you, and this might not be the same as nav or Transport Canada rules, but some tournaments will say you must have working nav lights at all times. Maybe not turned on, but they must be working during your boat check. And if they don't work, you can't leave, because if you break down on the water, who's going to find you if your lights aren't working? Right?
100%.
Like, so there's all these instances. You hear everyone bitch and moan, pardon my French, but I'll tell you, a light bulb can ruin someone's day. I can remember, I'm not gonna pick on Cooper, but I'll pick on Cooper for a second. He, at one of the qualifiers, and I've seen this before with other anglers, but I'll pick on Cooper because this is the most recent version of this story. And I say versions because I've seen this happen. He took I took a flashlight, and he made like a little globe, and he went and bought tuck tape, red tuck tape, and like taped basically built his own navigation light for the bow of his boat with a flashlight and like a Tupperware container, and like he taped it all up, and it was legal. There was red right and green left, and it was legal, and it looked like something out of a Red Green show. I'm dating myself when I say that, but yeah, it was. I'll give Coop credit. It worked. Everyone was good about it, right? Like it was legal. And I'm sure he had help. I call those days arts and crafts days. Like at work, I call them. Sometimes at work, dude, like the trailer lights don't work and things, and like I'm out there in the parking lot with a multimeter and tools at 10 o'clock at night, and I always tell the staff that I work with, I call it, well, it's arts and crafts tonight, everybody. We get back from dinner, we got to fix that trailer light because we can't be on the road without working lights, and same with working lights on a vessel. Yeah. And if anyone owns a boat, they know how problematic boats are, right? And you're always fixing them, and it's usually wiring. And yeah, anyways, I'm ranting now, but dude, it's some of this stuff with some preparation and care. We don't have to have these incidents. But to go back to some of these like tragic ones, you'll hear stories about, well, the guy was fishing in the middle of the channel or middle of the lake. So what? You have to yield. Like, and you can dictate, you can recite legislation about where they shouldn't be anchored there, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. It's like going down the highway, like here in Delhi, Highway 3 goes right by the high school. It's a 40 zone. There's kids crossing there, dude. The high schoolers don't use crosswalks. Like they do not. I don't go near the high school during lunch hour because there's kids running everywhere. Because there's pizza places across the street. This is like the best game of Frogger you've ever seen, right? You got a bunch of high school kids running for the pizza shop to get their slice. You know what I'm talking about, Scott.
I know. I shouldn't be laughing. But...
I know. So across the road, there's like a Timmy's, a Subway, and a Tito's Pizza. And everyone's going to get their lunch. And there's kids running across that road. And there has been, like, no one's been killed, but there's been incidents. There's been injuries. There's been several close calls. And they finally put a proper crosswalk with the giant lights. Like if you travel down south, like I know when I go to Florida, there's more crosswalks than people down there, man. Like to get from one end of it, like where we stayed last year, Heather and I, to get from one end of the town to the other, you got to go through like 40 crosswalks, and all the beachgoers are crossing at the crosswalks. And I love it because I see them coming. But you would not, if you saw someone crossing the road in front of you, you'd slow down like you should. How is that any different in a boat?
Well,
And
I couldn't agree. And to further your point, if someone crosses the median, like, do you run into them head on? Like, no, even if they cross the line and they're in the wrong, you're going to avoid them. So whether someone's moored here, fishing there, at the end of the day, the game is not to run into other people. And again, I don't mean to bring light to it, but there is definitely some need for change. And Joe, you bring up a great point in regards to workplace safety and safety in general. This is not a one-off. We go through the stats and we see, these are staggering numbers. $62.5 million in property damage due to boating accidents. 767 fatalities. And that's just in 2020. This is the most up to date that I could get. But over 5,000 boating accidents occur annually in the States. Now, the one thing I will say, we are doing a little bit better than our folks down in the South. Their numbers are going up. Our numbers are actually starting to go down. So a big shout out to Canadian boaters, because our accidents are actually starting to decrease. But still, when you have 244 accidents in 2022, and how many deaths that were occurred to that or related to that, like, that's just too many. 18 fatalities. Like, 18 fatalities is too many.
Yeah.
So to your point, and I will share this video, Joe and Jay and anybody else who's watching, and there's a reason that I'm showing this, because I think it's important to know there has been lots of rumors, lots of discussion. This angler gives us a perspective that he had on the water, on the lake, during that tournament at the blast off, trickle start, whatever you want to call it. But have a look, and I'm sure your reaction to the video is going to be the same as mine. Well, obviously it wasn't the weather.
Yeah.
This is approximately 6:41 a.m. and here I am going across the point around near Miller's Bottom, and you can see the striper boat positioned off the point. So this would be approximately 20 minutes prior to the accident occurring. I'm on my way to my first fishing spot, which is past that area. There's obviously no fog. I do need to point out there's a blurry spot on my camera, but that you can tell that's on my camera. That isn't a fog related kind of thing.
So I hate to point out the obvious, but when you see that, Jay, obviously we know what happened.
Yeah. It's well, and you look at, like, again, we weren't there. We don't know what's to that boater's right, like how much room he has. He could be giving that striper boat a wide berth, which is good, which is what you should be doing. But we don't know the situation. But yeah, like, the weather conditions there look fine. Like, that's a manageable situation. So, like, you don't know, like, maybe, like, did the anglers something break down? Like, Alicia talks about a breakdown in her comments. Like, if the motor stalls out when you're traveling at that rate of speed, you lose control. It's no different than if your car stalls and you lose power and you can barely steer or brake, right? Because everything is electrically operated now, right? All these systems. And so if you lose power, you are slowing down, but you're still traveling at a high rate of speed before you actually come to a stop. Yeah, we don't know the situation. So, and George, to your comment, I agree. I don't know what's going to be said. I am curious to hear what MLF says, and MLF knows, they have to know that whatever they say is going to reflect on everybody else in the industry. And whether you're Bass, MLF, or even our local circuits in Ontario are good friends that we know. And yeah, it's going to be it's going to be an interesting situation. We know these things happen, but what will come of this, and what legal precedents might change or might be set? Don't know.
I'm not sure how many tournament anglers we have. Alicia, you are a great person to speak on behalf of tournament anglers. So I will pose this question to you. Do you see a need? I mean, I know you mentioned that a 250 was what you had and what other boats have to compete. Do you have any issues with the 250, or would you like to see that decreased? And others, maybe, you fished a couple club tournaments. Maybe you've only fished one tournament in your life. At the end of the day, I think folks who have driven a boat, been in a boat, and experienced, what it's like to go over wakes, hit waves, be on water that you're not familiar with, driving at speeds that you can't react quick enough. Is the 250 too much? Should we limit the speeds during these tournaments? Can we? Can we limit the size of power heads? Can we limit the size of boats? I don't know, but I will say
what will happen, Scotty, though, is you have to limit it. It'll be like motor and boat, like it'll have to be the whole package, right? Because basically, and I think folks know this, to get the most performance out of your boat, and I don't mean speed, I'm talking about just efficiency. Like if you have a big boat, you need a big motor. And if anyone's been in an underpowered boat, they know that you can't even get up on plane. All you do is burn gas and waste time, right? And I'm not trying to go faster. I want to get up on pad to get to my location efficiently. It's not even about speed. It's about, like, I'm just being efficient. You're getting, so for folks that know, I'm on pad is you get up on plane, right? And you're able to trim the boat out properly, so you're not, and you have a good field of view. So if you can't get up on pad, you're looking at the bow of your boat, your field of view is obstructed, right? So you want to get up on pad so you have a good field of view, you can look around you. And I think that if we went the way of regulating boat size and motor size, and we really changed the name of the sport. But all of that can be said, we aren't the ones who are going to be making the decisions. Someone's going to make them for us. This is kind of like,
exactly.
Okay, so I have two kids, and I have two very good kids, but raising kids has its moments. Mm-hmm. And there's times where especially when they're teenagers, you want them to regulate themselves in a good, proper way.
Amen.
But sometimes mom and dad have to come in and say, we're going to regulate this for you because you can't regulate it yourself. And I don't support that. I like to see things like common sense kind of prevail, and we can go talk about what common sense is. But I think that's where I'd like to see things go. But unfortunately, when it comes to us as humans, sometimes we need someone to tell us what to do. Like, yeah.
And here's the take that I had, because one of the things, and I think that's a great point that you bring up, Jay. A lot of folks had mentioned, wow, this wouldn't have happened back in the day. Okay, well, I'm not going to argue that, but things were definitely different back then. One of which I can say without any hesitation, I don't know too many 20-year-olds that were running around with a 18 or 20-foot bass boat that had more than a 200 horse on the back of it. I really don't. So, I don't want to say that, we're older, we're more mature, we can handle things better. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But I was a young lad once myself, and I owned a Go Fast boat. It was a Charger, and it had a 225 on it, and it was insane. It was gnarly. I had a blast doing it. Would I want to be on that boat now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser? No. That's the difference. There is your difference. So it really, at the we could look back, and I don't know how far back you go, because really, the evolution of outboard engines and the power, the blocks that came with it. Like, I mean, the fact that we can buy a 300, a 400, a 600 horse outboard is mind-boggling to me. But that you could put it on the back of a boat, and to your point, Alicia, it's all about the licenses. To me, it's about the licenses. And I think that, the fact that you say there's no issues with the 250, I do believe that as soon as you get into a different horsepower, there should be a threshold that basically resembles that when it comes to licensing, because That's incredible power that you're giving somebody. Even the Sea-Doos, the fact that these Sea-Doos can do 70, 80 miles an hour, like, and what do you need to drive one of them? Not much.
Yeah. So there's kind of a running joke in Turkey Point, and if anyone wants to, and this shouldn't be funny, but it's been going on for so long. So in Turkey Point, which is close to home, and I spent a lot of time there. A lot of good friends work and fish in that area, and they have a Sea-Doo rental outfit in Turkey Point, and you just basically you don't need much to drive a Sea-Doo, and they rent them out, and all they do is get wrecked, the Sea-Doos.
Yep.
And the business rents Sea-Doos and rent these little pontoon boats with like 50 horses on them.
Yep.
And people come in and they rent them and they go out, and I can't imagine what their repair bills are and their insurance is to do that, because you can sit and watch them from there's a patio at the restaurant there. And I won't lie, I like to look at the water when I'm in Turkey Point. Like if there's a patio, a waterfront patio, I want to look at the lake, but I love going to this patio to watch. Like the Benny Hill theme song is the soundtrack to the Sea-Doo rental place in Turkey Point. That's all I'm going to say. And now in that area, they're not able to drive fast because that is the idle area, but they're also going too fast for idling. So there's a lot of chatter between the boaters coming in and the Sea-Doers. Yeah. Alicia knows the spot. I've sat and watched with Alicia and TJ. I've sat and watched the rentals come in and out. Like we've literally watched them do it. It's wild. And the Pleasure Craft Operators card, I hate to say it, but Alicia's right. Like, how do you make it more stringent? I don't know, but I know people that never took the test. They got like their spouse or their brother to write the test for them just so they could get their card, because they're like, why do I have to do this? And I won't lie, when Trevor I've had my Pleasure Craft Operators card forever. I was one of the first people to get it. And I actually also have like commercial craft operators. Like I have all kinds of certifications. And I remember Trevor, when he turned 16, he took the Pleasure Craft Operators test, because we go to the cottage every year, and my buddy who owns the cottage has a boat there. And I wanted Trevor to drive the boat. I thought it'd be good practice, right? Well, anyways, of course, he left it to the very last minute. So like the night before we're going to the cottage, we're helping him write the test. Like not cheating, but like it's almost like helping your kid study for a chemistry test or a math test, right? Like in high school. And some of the questions, they're hard, dude. Yeah. I won't lie. Like some of the different buoy types, I had to think about it. I'm like, and it's multiple choice, so usually you get it right if you think about it long enough. But it was pretty hard. There's a few questions like I probably would have still got a really good mark, but some of the questions left me thinking. And there's a lot of things to consider. And I guess because the waterways that I use don't have a lot of these navigation aids that were on the test, but they have to test everyone, and it's not easy. And I actually was happy that I helped Trevor with that test, because that was 2 years ago, because it was like a refresher for me. It makes me want to retake the test, to be honest, because I took it a long time ago. And actually at work, I have taken a couple of there's a similar test for guides, it's something different now. It's called SVOP, the Safe Vessel Operators Permit. So it's a commercial version of the Pleasure Craft Operators card, and they change the regulations every few years, right? So I actually retook that a few years ago, and I'm glad I did, because as regulations change, it was important to know what those changes were. So
100%. And I mean, there's the one thing I will say, Brad and I had this conversation, I think last night. We were talking about it. When it comes to, licenses, we could talk about getting your driver's license and that whole program. But at the end of the day, I think there's far too much attention focused on the laws of the road as opposed to the rules of the road. And a lot can be said for boating. When it comes to the rules. I don't know if you're tested if a sailboat is under power. Does it have the same right of way as if it's have sails aloft? Some people don't know that. At the end of the day, you always err on the side of caution, and like you mentioned, just give them a wide berth. But do you give them a wide berth to the right, or do you give them a wide berth to the left? Some people don't know that you actually have to pass on the right still, even though you're driving a boat. Some folks don't know that, and I think we've gotten away from it on our roads because we see it all the time. People just, they don't care about other people, and they should. Let a person in. Don't anyway. We could digress with this topic, but at the end of the day, I think there is not that grandfather, father, mother that has been driving all her life that knows the ethics of good driving, whether it be a boat or a car, passing that kind of information down. And we can see that just with our new Canadians. Our new Canadians don't necessarily have a great grasp of driving because they haven't grown up like we have, where your dad took you to the back 40. He got you to spin out on a dead-end cork to get a feel for what it was like driving in the wintertime. These are things that we've lost, and I think we need to get back to, because to what we're seeing right now, this could have been avoided big time.
Yeah. I saw one of the comments here from Curtis. Curtis worked with me. He was actually one of my students, and he works as a senior technician now for a different scientist. And Curtis says there's no enforcement on the water for reckless operation of a vessel. It needs similar penalties to a vehicle on the roads. So there is some, there are some penalties, Curtis, but they're not always enforced, and there's not enough patrols out there. I know, what was the incident on Rice Lake a couple years ago where that boat was doing donuts around somebody else, and I think that individual got charged for reckless operation?
I do
that happened, but there's not enough patrol out there.
Yeah.
And what do? You can turn somebody in if you know their vessel number, but then it becomes hearsay, right? So I think, vessel operators. So if I'm going down a slow, where I live, dude, this time of year, especially the other day coming home, it was the longest commute, and it wasn't because of traffic in Hamilton, dude. It was tractors. You're doing 50 for half an hour because of just it's the time of year. The tractors are out, they're plowing the fields, they're getting the seed ready, they're fertilizing, everything's getting ready, right? It's springtime, and all the tractors are out, and there's a Congo line of cars, and everyone's getting anxious. And this happens with boaters too. But with boaters, because it's water, they think about this. On a road, you got a road. You can't go off the road. But on water, people think they can go where they want, and they get impatient. And not only is it hazardous to pass someone closely, but you're also throwing a wake on them, right? And now that those boaters have to manage that giant wake you just put on them. It's
100%.
Boats are just so different than vehicles, but people treat them the same, and it's not really safe at all. So
couldn't agree more. And George, I almost hope you're right to a certain degree that nothing does change, but I have a hard time believing that nothing's going to come of this. And Alicia, to your point, I think that's kind of where Jay and I were going with this. And it's not about pointing fingers or laying blame. It's just, I think it's pretty obvious what happened in this case. We had a boat that was it was going faster than the driver could react. And I think he got caught up with whatever.
I think what might happen, like George says, things might not change, but I think where things might go is for the average boater. We're all talking about size of vessel here, size and speed. Mm-hmm. And if changes happen, I think it'll be because of the size of the vessel, and you'll have to pay a higher insurance premium to operate a larger vessel. Now, one, they're just worth more money now, but two, they're also a greater liability unless there's some sort of certification test that people can take. Like Ed mentioned there about SVOP. Yeah. So anyone who's operating a commercial vessel in Ontario, and I hate to say it, Ed, it's the acronym's changed now. It's a different course. It's just changed the last couple of years. It's the same content. They just upgraded the name. And if anyone, so when I've taken courses like that, and they're run by Transport Canada certified folks, and it's usually a 1 day, SVOP is a 4-day course, and it used to be in person. Now it's partial. You can do in person still, but they have some of them are partially online. It's almost a week of training, and most of the times when I've gone, half the class is like let's say biologists or technicians, and there's a bunch of Coast Guard folks in there, of course, especially like newer staffers. But there's usually a bunch of fishing guides in there, and I would, even when I was kayak guiding on Long Point a few years ago, like I was one of the only guides who actually had at first had that proper certification. And, you know, because you're guiding people on the water, like these types of, and not just fishing guides, like if you're a ferry operator or, you know, any kind of commercial vessel. So you're running, obviously, if you're running a freighter, that's a whole, you got to go to school for that.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot of, and I would encourage folks, if there's anglers out there who want to really sort of up their game. Yeah, that's right, Ed. Take the commercial course out of personal interest. If you're really serious about fishing, take the course. It costs money, but go take it. You will feel better coming out. I promise, because it's very much, you take what you learn in the Pleasure Craft Operator's Card and you expand on it over a 4-day period. Like we used to learn they used to bring out charts, not maps, charts. That's one of my pet peeves. And you learn how to actually navigate using a chart, how to use a compass. Like, dude, sometimes in these situations you need a compass still. Like, because if your electronics go down and you hit a fog bank, I have situations in my day where I wish I had a compass and I didn't in my younger days, and I always have a compass on the water now. Your phone has a compass if you can get a cell signal. There's actually apps that work as a compass.
True.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm babbling on again, but these are all the things to consider when you're out on the water, and it's your safety in the end. And it's not just your safety, it's your passenger safety and others around you. It's their safety.
100%. And as I said, I think we're all sort of from the same vintage. So we do, I think, believe that, you know, and George, you know what, I'm hoping that you're right with your comment that, you know, yes, there'll be some lawsuits. Yes, there'll be charges, but, you know, we'll just move on to the next attention grabbing news that comes our way. If that's how it's dealt with, then I think we've missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this because I'm requesting change, but I think, folks, I'm sorry, it's pretty obvious that there's too much too soon at too young of an age, that we need to get a better grip on the control factor. Because again, I'm not here to blame anybody, but at the end of the day, I think, George, it was you that maybe said it. We were just brewing for this. Like how we've managed to avoid this is a miracle in itself. And I think we need to do whatever it takes to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I'm hoping you're wrong.
At my shop, so I've been there over 20 years. And my first decade there, I was not on the OSH committee. I really wasn't. I didn't feel like I should be telling people what to do, Scottie.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a very good safety record, like knock on wood. A lot of that's just, dude, a lot of it's trial and error. Like I've been in situations that I probably put myself in that I shouldn't have been, and I've learned from those situations. You know, and that this comes from spending 100+ days a year on the water for 30. I've been doing this type of work for 30 years. And I'll tell you that now that I'm on the OSH committee at work, like I really try to teach others how to do it safely. And sometimes it's, you need to work with someone. And this, I guess what I'm saying here is job shadowing is so important. You know this in your line of work, man. If you bring someone in and you're working in a hazardous place or potentially hazardous, job shadowing is so important and learning from someone else. And I think that a lot of, when it comes to boating, we need to teach each other how to operate boats safely and set a good example for people. And I enjoy that. Like I enjoy making people feel uncomfortable sometimes. Does that make sense? Like I hate that. Like I don't do it to be a jerk. I'm doing it because I'm asking the hard questions sometimes, and especially when it comes to the safety of others, that's important to me. So, and like I really would love to see everyone get themselves a nice inflatable PFD and know how to use it. I think everyone should have one, dude. Like we talk on this show all the time about these beautiful rods and reels that we love. Okay. Like if I could pan my camera over here,
yep,
there's a lot of money on that wall. Okay. Shit, man. Just here, just this. Like that's all my jigs. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 times 12 times $10 each. Like, dude, jeez, that is one inflatable PFD easily, probably 2.
Yeah.
Like everyone should have one. The technology is there. Everyone should have one now.
So on that note, I will agree.
Wear them. Like if you're not wearing it, like say, why aren't you wearing your PFD? Put it on.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Tony, yes, I will definitely be wearing it at Horwood, and I want to thank you for being that guy on. I'm not sure if it's the right shoulder or the left that reminds me all the time when I'm not. But yeah, no, I think it should be mandatory, and who knows? Maybe that's what comes out of this. Just like seatbelts, you know, we just had too many deaths, and they had to impose it. We couldn't rely on people doing the right thing.
There's this old video. I wish I could find a copy of it. And it's a horrible video. Okay, so I used to watch these water safety videos that I think if I played them for people now, they would have to go to therapy because they're so graphic. Okay. And there's 2 videos that stand out. And I'll try and describe them. The one's about foot entrapment in rivers. Okay. So if anyone knows what that is, when you're going down a river and you capsize in a canoe and you stand up and your foot gets caught in a rock and you get pulled under the water and your foot's stuck, you drown. And there was this song in the video where the guy drowned and they showed an overhead shot of the body in the water. And it was about the river and the watery grave. And I'm like, that's horrible. That is a horrible video to watch. And we used to watch that every year. My one manager years ago, right? This would not be allowed now, to be honest. But anyways, I was watching this. The other one was a cold water video. Okay. So it had a dad in the boat on a little like 12-foot boat. And there's 2 little kids in the boat with dad. Dad's not wearing his PFD. The boat hits a rock, and I believe the boat did capsize, and it has 2 little kids hanging on to the boat. They got their PFDs on, and dad's life jacket is floating over there with no dad.
Yep.
And that's how the video ends.
Yep.
It's called Cold Water. Like, I remember the video, like I should look it up on YouTube. It's horrible.
Like Joe, I remember exactly the one you're talking about. Exactly the one we're talking about.
But this is what's happening. Like, this is when you hear about drownings and boat accidents.
Yeah.
I have to connect the dots, and it's likely. Now, if you're unconscious, a PFD will not flip you over. Okay. It has to be a life jacket. Correct. And I'm going to, all right, now I'm all fired up now. So, okay, this is, where is it? So there's, okay, I'm going to try and rant while I'm talking about this. So there's one Mustang, and this is not a Mustang promotion. This is the one. So this PFD, and it is not cheap. Okay, it's probably the best PFD you can get. and I'm going to tell you why. And this is the one that we use at work, and this is the one that I personally have purchased from Mustang for my family. And where this is it here, Mustang PFD/life jacket. Okay, so putting it in the comments. And okay, so this particular PFD, and I wonder if I can actually share this. Yeah, I'm gonna share this.
Okay.
Okay. So just so people can see it, because it's a very unique PFD. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this PFD, it's a hydrostatic PFD. It has a pressure sensor on it. Okay. Has the pressure sensor here. You can get replacement cartridges. This thing is probably over $400 with tax. Okay. This one has been tested to, it is certified as, and if you read the specs on it, it's certified as a life jacket. Mustang is, well, one Canadian company, number one. Let's talk about Mustang. Canadian company, so support Canada. That's number one. Number two, they do all their own independent research, and they do a great job of this. And because let's put it this way, you're testing this equipment to save people's lives. Okay.
Yep.
So this particular unit, it will actually flip you over properly. The straps are all heavy duty. Like, it's made to stay on your body. It has gone through different stress tests when they've tested it. It has reflective tape on here. Okay. Even has a little slot here, which I can mount my, like for work, I have my little knife,
yep.
Right? My little cutting knife for cutting myself. So if I get tangled up in the nets, I can use this to cut the nets. I literally bring this with me to work. Like, so if I get caught up in a net, I can cut myself loose. I'm telling you, this is the best inflatable. You got to look up the color, and I'm going to try and find. Anyways, I'm taking up too much time doing this. But if folks want details on this, message me. I'll send it to you. Yeah, Mark.
Great question, buddy. Thank you for asking that.
Mark, so I've been wearing this. I'm a little skinnier now. Okay, but I'm 6'3", 262 now. I was 6'3", 330 wearing that PFD. Like, it is made for the big guys. Okay, I had to max it out, but I wasn't restricted. Like, it wasn't. And I think Mustang actually makes like extenders to make it bigger. It is the best inflatable on the market. And to be honest, you can't get inflatables. I don't know of a bigger one out there. I've tried them. I've used Mustangs before, and when they came out with that design, I've used nothing else since. Now, when I'm kayak fishing, I do enjoy my foam PFD with all my pockets for keeping all my stuff. But I do, on hot days, I do like my inflatables for sure. And dude, I've worn that into Tim Hortons, man. Like, I've literally pulled the boat out and I'm miserable and I'm wet and I'm cold, and I just get in the truck and I drive to Timmy's to get a hot coffee, and I've kept it on. Like, I don't care. I'm already in the truck. It's raining out. And I'm like, screw it. I'm going to Tim's with this thing on. Whatever. Like, it doesn't bother me. I think it's yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. Curtis says they also come in camo. So, and what you'll find is a lot of the good folks that work with me, they all adopt these PFDs. Like, everyone, because they're just so durable, man. All you have to do is, I would recommend buying a spare cartridge, and there's videos online on how to change the cartridge and know how to change the cartridge. But it's hydrostatic, but don't keep it in your boat. Please, any inflatables, I tell people, don't keep it in your boat. When you get home at night, you bring your lunch out of the boat. Like, you might leave your tackle in your boat. That's fine. Bring your PFD, hang it on a nail in the garage. Hang it up in the garage so it stays dry. You don't want to you spend money on it. You don't want to get moldy, and you don't want to do that. So make sure that you take good care of your PFD. So
100%. So, George, to get back to your point, yes, obviously in this situation, it could be argued that, physics unfortunately had a bigger play in all this. But at the end of the day, it's obvious to me anyway that this could have been avoided, and that's not to lay blame or point fingers at anybody. But we need to be better, and we don't want to talk about this anymore. Jay will can attest to this. I had a hard time even talking about it tonight because I knew what could come of this, and I know some people are very passionate about the government not telling us everything that we need to do, but I think in some cases we need people in place to think for those who can't think for themselves. So yeah, it is what it is. Ed,
I hear you, man. But you know what? Like, I think what's important, dude, is that we just have to kind of keep spreading that word, man. And if we can help one person from not drowning, then we've done our job. Dude, I'm serious.
Bingo. Well said, Jay.
And make people feel uncomfortable. Like, don't be afraid to ask. Like, dude, even up at Horwood, like, do you got your kill switch on? Like, get in the habit of clipping your kill switch to your life jacket. Like, that's what I do all the time. Like, I actually buy at work, I don't like the little clips. Like, I actually buy the Sea-Doo style that goes around your wrist. So a lot of our outboards are tillers.
Yeah.
So I buy the one with the wrist mount because I find if it's underneath of my PFD, it gets like tangled up in me because I can't turn. Like, I'm driving the vessel and I just want to reach for my coffee or something or adjust the screen.
Yeah.
And so I like the fact that it's on my driving hand. So I'm on a tiller. Like, I'm on a tiller, oh my God, 90% of the time. And so that little wristband, I love it. So if you're working a tiller outboard, use that little wristband and you'll find it won't get tangled up as much when it's not in the way. But yeah, use your kill switch all the time for sure.
Amen. Jay, as always, dude, I can't thank you enough for all that you bring to our community, and of course what you do each and every Monday here on CFN Live. This was a great discussion. It actually played out exactly how I had hoped. I want to thank the folks who did chime in with some great comments. At the end of the day, it's a discussion that I think is going to be had. What's going to come of it? It'll be interesting to see. I don't know, but I don't think it's over. George, I'm hoping you're right. I'm hoping this just is a phase and it passes and we can carry on. But I don't believe that that's going to be the case. But in the meantime, our thoughts and prayers are with those families and friends that have lost their loved ones, and nothing's going to bring them back. So
no, it's unfortunate and sad, but it's a good time to talk about these things, right?
Amen. Right on, Jay. You have yourself a great week, buddy.
You too. Hey, man, trout opener.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, there's lots of things that are going to be happening in the coming weeks. Trout opener is definitely one. I know that folks are yearning to get out and target some pike if they haven't already. Perch are starting to be. I see perch being taken out of Lake Erie. I mean, even the walleye. There's a lot of fishing going on right now. It's good to see.
Yeah,
it's great.
Crappie are moving. Like, even I know you talked with Lawrence about we're still in spring here and or late spring. We're not late spring. We're normal spring. Like, if you look at the temperature trends, I've been studying this for a month now because of it's. I feel like my work is delayed. It's not delayed, man. We're just on time for a change. And crappie are moving. Not just down here. I see guys catching crappie in the Kawarthas right now, right? So, and there's still ice in central Ontario, like Algonquin Park and places still have ice. Ice out has not happened yet. So, like, we're getting there. Pike, crappie, and dude, and there's steelhead still moving around, right? So, yeah, we're good, man. It's going to be a good next couple weeks of fishing, buddy. So I got to scout some rivers this week. I gotta put my waders on for work, and I'll touch base next week after trout opener, my man.
Sounds good, buddy. Well, you have yourself a great week. Good luck. Go catch a whale for me.
We'll talk to you soon. I'll send you pictures, dude.
Okay, dude. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Thanks,
talk
Jake.
to you.
All right. That is our show. Thanks so much for everyone who joined us. Again, the playoffs are going to make it very difficult for us to continue forward, but it is a special kind of time for those who enjoy the playoffs. So we will do our best to try and gain your attention. And it will be difficult, I know. Trust me, I know. Anyway, Wednesday we are going to be having another power hour. My good friend Danny Bacon is going to be joining me, and who we are going to be talking to has not yet been confirmed yet, but I do believe we have a few in play. But I also want to let everybody know that our Made in Canada tackle giveaway, which was the 2-night stay at Camp McIntosh for you and a friend, is going to be given away on Wednesday night. So stay tuned to that. In the meantime, you guys have yourselves a great week. Take lots of the advice that was given by Jay. And as I said, for all that we spend on tackle, we got to spend the same on making sure that we get back to the dock in one piece. On that note, love you all. Enjoy your week. Take care. All the best. Peace. And Dave, it's time to take us away.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.